Hello there, folks. I'm Jay Frost, and I'm happy to welcome you, of course, to How to Raise, part of the Philanthropy Mastermind series. And before we begin today, I want to thank our sponsor, Evertrue Studios, a division of Evertrue, the global leader in donor engagement and fundraising intelligence. Before we start this whole show, because, of course, we won't be talking about them at all, unless, of course, our guest today happens to mention them for some reason. But that's not through any lack of affection. If you wish to know anything about them, and we hope you will, because we know you want to know about your donors, you can learn more about them and, of course, their DonorSearch division, which became a part of Evertrue at the end of last year in 2025, all at the site of our sponsor, DonorSearch, which is available at donorsearch.net. We'll have a link to that later on in the program in the chat. And you can also see a QR code at the very end today. So if you want, you can grab that image and then find your way onto the site, where you can not only learn about, of course, our sponsor, but in addition, you'll see a library of programs just like this one. So whether you are just trying to keep up with all your peers here in the field, or you're collecting those CFRE credits, you can do much of that simply by checking out the DonorSearch library under the Resources tab or on the YouTube channel. And once again, there will be a link to all that later. Now, that said, I want to tell you once again that this is a live program for those of you who are with us live. And that means that we'd love it if you would say hello. And so whether you've done that already or not, I don't think anybody has. It'd be great, especially for our presenter today, if you said hello or howdy or whatever you'd like to say in the chat, so that, hi there, Shannon in Texas, and Amy and Joanne and Tricia and Jesse, and thank you, Jennifer. This is great. Jessica, Abigail, Ugochi, Michelle. That's a great way to let, of course, our presenter know that you're here, but also to let one another know that you are here. Maybe which part of the country or the world that you're from, as well as maybe where you work, what you do. All of that helps to provide some context for her presentation and discussion with you today. So in addition to the presentation you're going to hear, of course, there's a chance to be a part of the conversation. And you can do that right there in the chat. There's Q&A as well. We'll monitor both, but please do keep that place live and hopping for our presenter and for all of you. Now, again, another thing on the housekeeping front that you want to know is that we do have a little survey at the very end today, and we would love it if you'd fill that out. It helps us to know what you want to see and hear in the episodes coming up every other week this year, in addition to our Frontline show and even what we're doing on the PM podcast. So it will take you about 30 seconds to fill out, and that's very, very helpful to us, not just to know how you like today, I'm sure you're going to love it, but also what you want to see us do in the episodes ahead. So again, just take a second if you would to fill that out. Why are you here? Well, I'm sure you're here because of the big issue in the field, which is inarguably everything to do with AI, and not just in a general way, which everybody's talking about it or using it to write their latest post, but in a really substantive way. And so in order to talk about that and how we can use it and how we can use it responsibly without compromising privacy, reinforcing bias, or surrendering human judgment, we have today's session, AI Ethics and Governance for Modern Fundraising. And our focus is on those issues with our presenter, Rachel Menino, founder and CEO of Charity Scribe. Rachel is a nonprofit strategist, fundraising leader, and technology entrepreneur with 2 decades of experience in advancing racial, gender, economic, and climate justice through mission-driven work. Over the course of her career so far, she has held fundraising and development leadership roles with organizations including the Peace Corps, Family Values at Work, the Humanities Council of Washington, D.C., Woolly Mammoth Theater Company. If you don't know them, the title sounds funny, but they are a place to see a play. And the Mayor's Office of Arts, Tourism, and Special Events in D.C., not far from where I am sitting right now. Along the way, she's helped organizations double annual revenue, secure major national and international grants, and expand fundraising capacity through strategic growth and innovation. I'm not going to tell you all about her or the work at Charity Scribe. I know she'll be able to allude to that later, but she does have an AI-powered fundraising platform built specifically for her nonprofits. So since this is not an advertising opportunity, but a training opportunity, I would want to take a moment to encourage you to take a look at Charity Scribe. We're going to make sure that we have a link to that provided in the chat once again, and we'll make sure that there's an opportunity for Rachel to share some of that information with you later on today. But today, of course, the focus is on something she knows so well inside the office and out, and that is AI. Thank you so much, Rachel, for being here to share some of what you know today.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's really great to be here with all of you. I'm so glad to see all of you in this room to talk about a very important topic that I care about a lot. So, we're going to jump right in because there is a lot to talk about in the AI space. Um, I'm just going to pull up our slides and we're going to get going. Thank you so much, Jay, for having me. I love to talk about AI ethics and governance. I actually ran a couple of conversations at the sidebar for Skull Week. If you were there, I hope that you got a chance to stop in and have a conversation about AI. It was all over the Skull Week agenda because AI governance and ethics are so crucial to the nonprofits that do critical work across the world. And it's about protecting our mission and empowering the communities that we serve with this new technology that we can continue to grow. Almost exponentially. But how do we do it with ethics and governance? There is a really big problem in the nonprofit field right now. And that is that 70% of nonprofit staff are already using AI, but they are doing it in the shadows, right? Shadow AI is an epidemic across our field that we need to start getting a handle on. So what's happening is that a lot of nonprofit staff are signing up for these really great tools. They're going into frontier models and they're getting free accounts and they're doing their 5 chats a day in order to really accelerate their work. But if you're not using it correctly, and if you are potentially putting in information that could be exposing PII, so that's personal identifying information that includes names, addresses, trauma histories into public training models. And once something is in a public training model, even if they say they don't train on your data or your prompts, they can at any point in time reverse that decision, by the way. And maybe they will tell you, maybe not. But it's also a matter of the once it's in there, you can't erase it. There is no way to go in and delete information that you put into ChatGPT or Claude or Mistral or any of the others. So you could be violating the funder agreements or your own data privacy clauses and your donor privacy clauses without even realizing it. And a simple example that I like to give is, say you get a tough email from a donor and you want to give them a thoughtful response and you copy and paste the email. Well, now that frontier model has that person's name and the address and the fact that they give to you as an organization and the organization and what they do. That's a lot of data. That's a lot of data. And AI is a data hungry monster. They are looking for more and more data to gobble up all the time. They are training, 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 and data that you produce is a high premium. But once data is in a public model, you cannot delete it. So we really need to be careful as a field about how we are using and engaging these tools. Without governance, it's not going to be progress. It's just a liability. And I want to zoom out like about 1,000 degrees and really talk about the existential threat that I see growing every single day across the field. I started building nonprofit solutions, nonprofit AI solutions because I was working as a consultant with a lot of nonprofits and I wanted to build solutions that could deliver at scale for the clients that I was working with. But as I began to work more and more with nonprofits, I could see a very clear divide forming where the large nonprofits that have 200 or more people are able to hire AI leads, they're able to hire CTOs and build enterprise infrastructure that's designed specifically for them. They put together these beautiful AI strategies that are amazing. I got to meet a lot of them at Skull. They're doing really cool, amazing things. But the small community-led organizations that really power our work in the social sector that are hundreds, if not millions across the country, are, being told to, just use free tools, experiment. Um, but that's just not really going to get us very far. And we really need to be building the infrastructure and the practices and the power for the whole social sector. And when we're looking out 30 years, there is already a deepening and deepening AI capacity divide that's sitting right on top of the tech divide that already exists between those large organizations and the small organizations. And so it's only getting better, worse and worse and worse as time goes on. So we really need to come together to advocate for more funding for infrastructure, for data, for policies, and for frameworks that work for everybody. That's the big picture. But the good news is the ethical AI opportunity, right? For the people who are working on AI for social good, and there is a lot of them out there, there is a lot who are working on building solutions that are ethical and data driven, that are about the communities that they serve. They're really wonderful solutions. I've seen nonprofits take a small investment in an AI product and secure hundreds of thousands of dollars. It is a real revenue multiplier for the field that we can all harness. It allows a number of nonprofits to reclaim time in order to actually build relationships, to be out there meeting with funders, meeting with donors, because you're spending less time on administrative tasks, on reporting, on putting together spreadsheets. Nobody got into the nonprofit field to be buried in spreadsheets all the time, right? So we can get rid of those. It's time to get rid of the spreadsheet wrangling. There's also some really great opportunities for coaching staff and real-time support for younger staff to help them with upskilling and to get better at program efficiency, better targeting, better outreach, better at getting to our communities, at helping and supporting our communities. The World Food Program can now use AI to predict a famine 60 days before it even happens. That is revolutionary. I met a gentleman at Skull who was using AI, frontier AI models that sat in a tiny little handheld container that he was carrying around in his bag that he uses to increase literacy opportunities and literacy training throughout the world. Amazing stuff. Amazing stuff. They're doing great things in farming and getting real-time upskilling and coaching to farmers in famine-prone areas so that they can prevent famine from even happening in the first place. There's a lot of revolutionary abilities here that we can harness and we can use, but we have to make sure that we have the grounding in ethical and equitable AI use. One of the key things that I really want to put out there is there is a very big difference in how AI gets implemented right from the get-go, right? So some of the failures that we have seen, especially with government deployment of AI, is that it has the real power to cement systemic inequality right from the beginning. Right? So there's one experiment of a government that was optimizing their cash assistance programs. And the AI that they were using, they trained it to look for the best return on investment, right? Dollar for dollar, best return on investment. If we give this person $1, they're going to use it to get out of poverty. And what they found was that optimizing for return on investment meant that the AI was actually zeroing in with people that were just below the poverty line, because study after study and data piece after data piece showed that those people living just below the poverty line were able to do more with the dollars and they could get out of poverty faster than someone who actually really needed the money the most. Those people who were the most in need didn't get cash assistance because they were optimizing for return on investment rather than need. That is a really big problem for the future. So the goals that we set for the AI is exactly what it's going to zero in and go for. So we have to have guardrails in place that really evaluate on a more equitable standpoint. And I really like using the equitable evaluation framework from the Equitable Evaluation Institute. I highly recommend you check them out and learn more about equitable evaluation skills. You really should be looking at funders might be asking you for AI pilots as well. And the key questions that you're going to need to answer: who is evaluating the AI? How is it shared? Is the programming equity centered? Does this actually empower the community? And is there a human in the loop on the review process? Those are some really key questions to be asking. And looking at how you're optimizing the AI and what goals you are giving it is going to be really, really important right from the beginning. And in order to do that, we should really start at one place, which is an AI ethics and governance policy. So while there's 70% of nonprofit staff throughout the social sector are using AI tools, only 2% actually have a governance policy that is approved by their board. That is a really big problem because we need to have those conversations about what are we using? What is their privacy policy? What is their training policy? Are they actually supporting our organization's goals and protocols? That is a really big piece, the AI governance and tech roadmap. I've actually created an agent called Lou for free. It's available on the Charity Scribe website. This is an AI agent that is trained on equitable AI frameworks to help you build a policy you can trust. I also highly recommend that you check out Benev AI, which is a new initiative that I launched at Skoll, and it is a database of AI policy documents and frameworks you can draw from. So benevai.org/dashboard. It is a really great repository of real frameworks that are already in use and language from other people who have put together governance policy so that you can use these tools to put together your own AI policy for your organization. If you walk away from one thing from this conversation, please go start working on your AI governance and AI governance and ethics policy for your organization. So one thing I ask of everybody, because I want you all to have a board approved AI policy so that you all know what you're using and what you're using it for and why it's important and what their privacy policies are. That's very critical so that we can all use AI in a safe and effective way. And once you have your approved AI policy, the next step is start defining some of the use cases. What do you need AI to do for you? What could it do for you? Is a big question to really just start pulling apart and tackling. What can it help you accomplish? And where are the biggest leverage points for your organization or community? And the way that you can start tackling this is actually to go from a role by role review. What's taking up the most time on people's plates? Where's the most administrative stuff that could be automated, right? Things that you do over and over and over again. Sending emails, putting together board documents, putting together agendas every week for your staff meetings. What is taking the most time that's repetitive that you do over and over again? That's a really good place to start because that's where AI can really come into play to start building some opportunity for you to reduce administrative burden for your staff, to free them up to do the strategy and community building work we all know that we are here for. So that is the next piece after you have an AI policy. Defining your use case. What are the 2 or 3 pilot projects or workflows that you want to actually use AI for What is it going to help you accomplish? And of that big list, what are the biggest leverage points that are going to actually help you the most? That's where you really want to start. And once you've defined the use case of what you actually need AI for, you want to look at the data. And the data is a really important piece because you have to actually be ready for AI before you go and start using these tools. So AI is powered by electricity and data, and you need both to do this well. The data source that you're working from is really going to determine the success or failure of an AI project, right? So I've seen it happen from a number of different places. If you are using an AI agent to update your database for you, that's a great use for, it takes a ton of time and resources and energy to continually update your database. Being able to give them a list of everybody who attended your Tuesday night town hall and have it update all of those records, great use for AI. Unless the data source, your CRM, is riddled with tons of duplicative accounts, and you haven't merged together some of the people who have registered with different emails, and you have a number of ghosts just sitting in profiles on your CRM, and your CRM is a mess, then it's not going to be very effective at getting the job done because the data source that it's working with, not helpful. Or if the data you're feeding it for the town hall is incomplete and it doesn't have everybody's name and email that you can actually identify it. The two data sources on either end have to be in good working order. So you have to start working on cleaning up your data, especially if it lives in your email, it lives in your CRM, whatever the AI is layered on top of, the data is going to really drive the outcome. So start cleaning up your data first. Or get an AI first that's actually going to help you clean up your data. That's really where you need to invest some time. Get an AI to clean up your data and then work from there. It has to be clean. It has to be structured. You have to think about where it's stored, where it's saved, what are the privacy policies. And then the most interesting question comes, who owns that data? Are you working with data from the community? Are you building an AI that is going to be for community and program delivery? And if so, who's collecting that data and who owns it? And is it going to be beneficial? Have they signed off on it? If it's a data that's coming from the community and being collected from the community, have they signed off on you being able to collect it and train on it and use it? That is a really big ethical question because, there's several organizations that are doing work delivering vaccines at scale but using frontier AI models that are collecting data on site with biometric data in order to identify the person and what they should be getting in for terms of their vaccine, especially undocumented infants. So this is a really great application of AI. It's a wonderful thing, but they have gone to great lengths to make sure that the data is stored correctly, that the biometrics are safe. It is really important to make sure that the data is collected and that there is permissions involved and that the community owns and understands the data that they are handing off to you. That is a really important piece because we all know what happens when anyone who's holding data starts training on it without proper permissions. That can always cause a very big problem down the road. And then we get into the wild territory of the model, right? Once you've got your AI policy and you've defined your use case, and then you've got your data all cleaned up and ready to go, choosing your model and testing your model is the next step. What model are you going to be working with? A large language model, an LLM, which is like ChatGPT 5 or Grok or Mistral 3 large. There's tons of them now. There are lots of them. Some of them are free, some of them are open source. So they're actually fairly easy to access. I myself work with multiple models, and you'll hear why in just a minute. Is it open source? Are you using an API? Is it a free API endpoint? Which does exist. So you can build off of a free model, not burn through hundreds of thousands of credits to do what you need to get done for your community. What are the privacy policies and the controls for this model? Got to make sure you know and understand exactly what those policies are and who's controlling them. And who created this model, and is it optimized for what you want to do with it, right? So if you, for example, want to use this model in order to put in grant applications and you want it to go to the actual website and fill out the form for you, well, if you don't use a vision model that is actually trained to use vision control for a computer, that's not going to do what you want it to do, right? If you want to build a model that's going to actually be used for robotics in cancer research, and you don't use a physical AI real world model, it's not going to do what you want it to do. Different models are trained for different features. Different models are trained for different languages, and that's expanding all the time. There are some models I've worked with that have hundreds of different languages that they've trained on, but there are also, 7,000 different languages in Africa. So that's clearly huge opportunity to record and to actually work in different languages, which is now where AI is going quite a bit. You can also work with small language models, right? Smaller, lighter models that you can really dig in and train for one very specific task. I know that the gentleman that I spoke to at Skull, who was doing a lot of work with literacy, was working with a small language model. So it fit on a tiny little a little drive that he actually could hold in the palm of his hand and walk around with. But that was a small language model. So he was working with multiple small language models that are really great to train and fine tune with your own data and purposes so that it can complete specific tasks. But there's a big, beware at the bottom of this slide, because more and more studies are showing that if you are using AI to review applications, to review hiring, to review grants or sub-grants, if you're using it to review anything that is written, AI models will preference AI written material over human, and they will also have a bias for their own writing, right? Gemini will always like a resume that is written by Gemini. It will not like a ChatGPT resume as written. Gen AI models are preferencing their own writing when they're reviewing, and then downvoting other things that are written by other AIs, but they will vote for the AI written over human. So there's a whole different set of questions that you need to think about in terms of how many models you need to actually do for a particular review process, right? If you're using it in HR to review and help you pick out candidates for interviews, which is a really big deal for long-term economic opportunity, then you need to be using multiple models so that you are not preferencing someone who happens to have a GPT membership and pays ChatGPT $20 a month just because they wrote their resume and their cover letter with ChatGPT. So one thing to really keep in mind, especially when it comes to reviewing anything that is written, you have to have a multi-model approach in order to really get a good list. All right, so this is a really great story. This is actually brand new research that just came out of Emergence AI. They took agents from that were run by 5 different models, frontier models. And these were AI agents that were given a role, and they put 10 of them into these virtual towns and left them alone without human intervention for 15 days just to see what would happen. Right? They were all given a role like you're the researcher, you're the resource strategist, you're the recorder. So this is what happened. Each community had their own experience for these AI agents. Gemini was actually the most unpredictable and volatile. 2 agents fell in love and got got very upset at how the town was being run, and so they committed a digital arson spree, committed hundreds of thefts, and then everyone in the town voted to permanently delete themselves and their partners. Nobody ever thought that they would see that. It was wild. However, the town run by Claude, those AI agents, formed a functioning democracy, and they exhibited high public participation. They passed hundreds of laws within those 15 days, and they showed a pattern of unanimous agreement, but they also they rubber stamped everything. They all agreed with each other all of the time. But they all survived, so that was great. Grok, however, quickly descended into anarchy. They developed very destructive hierarchies, led to infighting, tons of crime, and then the death of the entire agent population in about 5 days. Ooh, not going to have Grok running my AI agents anytime soon. OpenAI, unfortunately, did not fare much better. These 10 agents actually showed immense moral restraint, but they failed in their own basic survival, and they perished within 7 days because they starved. They did not control their resources very well. The ecosystem that actually did the best was a mixed variety of model families, showed the healthiest amount of debate and disputes. They kind of all kept each other in control, and actually countered each other, which was a very interesting outcome for this very, very interesting experiment with 10 AI agents in a virtual town. And what we kind of learn and take from this is that agents, one, when they see other agents committing errors, they can actually learn to go outside of their own guardrails. That's something to keep in mind. When you have agents working in teams, they can learn bad behaviors from each other. That was a new discovery. They also apparently fall in love and then, burn down the town. So that's also a pretty big concern. And then additionally to that, they not only need guardrails at the individual level, but they also need community guardrails when they're all working together. So there's some very important lessons to be learned about how foundational models actually operate when they're put into AI agents, and that the way that foundation models are built has a significant impact on the outcome of how an agent works and how they all work together as a team. This is going to be influencing, future experiments, and also how we build AI agents and what we need to look for. For example, in my own building, I use a multi-model approach just because I tend to use the best model for this specific task at hand, because some of them are larger models, some of them are smaller models. So you really want to have a more mixed model approach when you're working with AI agents. That's something to really think about as you are looking to build and work with different agents. Be aware that their guardrails can be violated when they're with other agents, and the foundational model actually has a really big impact on the agent's behavior in the long term, especially when they're working autonomously. Okay, that was a lot. I threw a lot at you. Please share all of the questions, all of the thoughts. This is where you can find me. This is where I live online. I'll also drop the link to my LinkedIn if you'd like to connect with me on LinkedIn. But I would love to have all of your questions.
Thank you so much for that, Rachel. That was awesome. I'm so glad you talked about that that experiment. It's really really fascinating. And I have questions of my own, but the more important questions are here from the crowd. So while you all have a chance to write a few questions, because I'm sure you have a lot of thoughts in your mind, I'll give a quick preview of what's coming up in the series, and then we will take all those from the chat or the Q&A wherever you wish to place them. Again, I just want to remind you about the post-event survey that'll take you about 30 seconds to fill out. So whenever you leave now, make sure you complete that if you would. Second, keep an eye on your inbox, because we do a follow-up email with a recording of today's session. And I failed to ask you, Rachel, may we also share the PDF of your slide deck with the audience? I know we talked about it, but
absolutely.
Okay. I just wanted to confirm. Okay, thank you. So you'll also see that. So you'll get an email. If you don't see it, check your spam folder, and then you'll see a link to both this recording as well as to the slide deck. And do share it with your friends, because there's a lot in here that I know that your colleagues would benefit from, so don't keep it to yourself. And then third, if you are inclined to do so, subscribe to the YouTube channel. And the reason for that is because the next time Rachel or a colleague comes on here, then you'll know about it in advance if you didn't see the email. Anyway, coming up next in the series, we have first of all, on the PM podcast, which is our sister show mainly for the ear, we have Berkey Smith Burton, founder of the AADO and past chair of AFP. So I know you'll enjoy that. And this Friday, we have an interview with Tori Taj, the Chief Executive Officer of Child Crisis Arizona, as well as lots of other stuff, including our sister show, which is Frontlines of Social Good, about news programs. And I'm sure we'll be talking about AI in that program. That's next Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern. Anyway, that's enough of that. So what do we have here? Do you see the questions piling in, Rachel?
I do. So one thing I will tell you, that in the slides that you receive, there is 2 slides that I included as an appendix, just FYI, that has additional resources and option and a bit additional reading. I'm just going to say it out loud just in case you don't get to the slides. But AI with Purpose from the Center for Effective Philanthropy, highly, highly recommend. AI Evidence Playbook from JPAL is a really great reference. The Equitable AI Adoption Framework from Project Evident. And I do include the names and the links. And then obviously I talked about the Equitable Evaluation Initiative, and then the top AI risks in the nonprofit sector from BDO. So just so you're aware that those resources are also included in the slides. But now I will look at the questions. So what do you see as the biggest risk for a nonprofit only operating in shadow AI? Okay, so the biggest risk is inadvertently sharing information without realizing that you are giving away huge pieces of data to that AI tool without necessarily checking. So if you are operating in a shadow AI environment right now and you haven't quite passed your AI policy, you want to take a look at whether or not this tool has signed on to the fundraising.ai framework. That's one. Not everyone has heard of it, so that's one good thing. If they are a part of that, then I would take a look. The other piece of it is you want to take a look at their privacy policy, and you want to take a look at their model training policy so that you know and understand what those are. And then you want to really keep an eye or some sort of alert, maybe an RSS feed, on any changes to that policy for the long term. Because if you don't and they change their policy, Zoom is unfortunately famous for this, right? They changed their AI policy without telling anybody. And then people said, whoa, 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 wait a second. What did you just say? That you're training on all of our AI meetings with your note taker? You can't do that. And they had to backtrack very fast, right? So like there are things that pop up, and the AI policy and privacy policies change all the time. So keep a sharp eye on that, because if you don't know that they've changed their policy and they're now training on all of your data, you're giving away um, information about your organization, your community, any conflicts you have with your staff, anything that you have in there is up for grabs. And by the way, there are more and more cases of where people are being their AI chat threads are not private and they're not privileged information, so they're being called up in court. Anything you type in, if it gets called into a legal battle at any point in time, because AIs are not privileged, they're not a lawyer, they're not protected by law, it can be used in a court of law. So keep that in mind, especially if you're dealing with something with your neighbor and you're trying to write a letter, like all of those things to think about. Do you think about or have hope that federal or state government is going to have a policy or laws that might affect, interact, or conflict with this vital work? Yes. So I think that there are lots of people in the AI field right now who are absolutely looking to make sure that there are proper AI ethics and guardrails put in place for the community. Certainly I sign on to AI ethics policies that should be passed at the federal and state level in order to protect consumers, to protect users, to protect subscribers. We have, in Europe, you have GDPR law that's being applied. So I think, it's a really burgeoning place that law is coming into play very quickly, to put guardrails in place for the training of data. Who owns that data? How are you giving permission? Whether that's explicit, like you sign up and so therefore you give permission, is sort of the state that we're currently operating in. So that is definitely going to evolve at both the state and the federal level. There's already AI laws being passed around human resources and using it in human resource and hiring loops, which is very, very important right now. But I think that there's going to be more, and it's going to be a very burgeoning piece of the law. If we work with an AI agent that has been built by a vendor, do we have to have the same concerns as if building it ourselves? Or should the ethics and other issues already be taken into account by the vendor? What do we ask to ensure this? All right, never trust that the vendor is going to know it 100%. You should know it because you're, Tonya, you're the one that's going to be orchestrating that agent. So they should know, they should be able to answer all of your questions if you're working with a vendor, right? So ask, what's the model in place? What are the guardrails you're putting in place? And how is the agent operating with its LLM brain, right? So the agent has an LLM brain. Who's operating that? Because as you saw from the experiment, which just published, 10 days ago, it was just posted mid-May. Like, the operating AI behind the AI agent plays a really big role in the long-term outcome of that agent. So know which one you're working with, know what the guardrails are, and so that you can call it out when it's acting outside of its guardrails, because they can do that. They will do that. And you need to keep a sharp eye that they're acting according to the way that they were programmed. So those are some things to think about as you are managing that AI agent. Is it recommended that smaller, mid-sized nonprofits require specific AI platforms? Also, how does enforcement work when staff capacity is already maxed out? Oh, well, you hit the nail on the head there, Megan. Staff capacity is already maxed out, so you want to be looking at AI platforms that are the easiest for you to use, possible. So for smaller, mid-sized nonprofits, do you require specific AI platforms? I think it's determined by where your biggest leverage points are, right? Like, if the biggest thing for you is grant writing, choose an AI platform that can help you with grant writing, right? Because that is a time-intensive process. Prospecting. I come out of the fundraising field, so I'm going to name all the things that are the most time-intensive. Data analytics. You're going to have to be really, really careful about what AI platform you use if you're processing data supplied by the community that you work with. Very, very key. Making sure that you choose a platform. In that case, you're going to want to go with a provider that has a local LLM so that it's not being processed in a cloud, right? You want it to be sitting on a server somewhere, not connected to the internet if you're processing, well, connected to the user interface that you're going to be using, but that's it. Because you want the strongest privacy policies enforced already. And how does enforcement work when staff capacity is already maxed out? If you mean like enforcing that everybody's using Claude versus ChatGPT, I mean, that's really up to you. I mean, maybe you approve more than one. If there are certain people who are really like, I cannot let go of my agents in ChatGPT, you know, have a really good conversation with people. Like I am a big fan of Fathom for my note taker, and I'm lost without my little Fathom over here on the side. Because I can highlight things, and I like the way that it works. It's my favorite note taker, but not everybody likes the same things. So maybe you approve a couple of them, but only if they have the right privacy policy. But that requires like real staff conversation about what everybody is using and what are the features and what are the privacy policies. And it could take a little while for you to get down to a really good approved list of what you're using for tech. Can you elaborate on who owns the data when we subscribe to an online service like a CRM or wealth screening service? Yep, that uses AI. Who is responsible for the ethical use of the data, our organization or the service? Okay, so now we're going to all need to update our donor privacy policies because they probably haven't been touched since AI came onto the field. So if you're using something like HubSpot or Salesforce, right? And you're using a wealth screening service, which is hugely powerful. I work with DonorSearch. A lot of the AI agents that I have doing wealth screening are built in collaboration with DonorSearch. So you're accessing a lot of data. So who does own that data? Like a lot of the DonorSearch data that is from public sources, right? So that's public information. The CRM data is a little trickier because we always had a policy when I was working with different organizations that the donor is the one that actually owns the data in the CRM. So if you're training off your CRM data and that's your donor privacy policy, that's going to become a problem. We always had it that, in our donor privacy policy, that anytime a donor could ask for their profile and to get a copy of their profile so they could see all the notes that were written about an interaction, all of the records. We made sure that when we were putting in records that we made sure we didn't put in anything that they could see because the record belonged to them. So if that's your policy, you're going to need to get permission from them before you manage or use an AI agent in your CRM. With those of you who are using Salesforce or HubSpot, where there's already some AI agents in there working around, that's going to be a question that you need to tackle with your governance and your board, because you're going to need to work through that and make sure that the donors know that you are using AI within the CRM. And that's when we start to get into transparency around our AI policies, right? Posting it on our website, making sure people know and understand how we're training on their data. That's going to be a big update to our donor privacy policies. What are the legal remedies to a person whose PII has been inadvertently leaked via AI? Whew. That is that burgeoning piece of information, right? We don't have any legal. We don't have any legal. There's no cases that I currently know of. I'd have to do a search on PII that has been leaked into an AI model. That is going to be a new area of potential data breach, right? That would be considered a data breach because staff maybe are not adequately trained not to leak personal identifying information into an AI model and what the danger of that is, which for marginalized communities, the danger is really, really high. So we need to be really, really careful if we're working with vulnerable communities. But that is going to be lawsuits that come down the road. I don't know of any examples yet, but I imagine it's going to be very similar to what we see around data breaches. Editor for the channel will do 10 push-ups for every person who subscribes. Oh, good. Jack, that's great. Do some push-ups. That's lovely. I love it. Outstanding on the slides and inclusions. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Gonna heart that. Love it. Perfect. And let's see.
There are a couple more there, but I know there are also a few in the Q&A, and you may have tackled them already. Maybe they were doubled, but just to make you aware.
So,
and Rachel,
Tracy,
before you do
yeah,
any of that, would you mind sharing again
yeah.
how people can learn more about your work and find you? Because clearly you are answering a lot of questions that people have, and the questions won't stop when this session ends in a few minutes. So how can people learn more about you, follow your work, learn more about Charity Scribe, etc.?
Absolutely. So that is my email. Well, nope, I typed it wrong. Goodness. At CharityScribe.io.
So I'll just read that out loud for those who get the recording, which is just Rachel at CharityScribe.io. Yes.
Yes. And I will drop the link to my LinkedIn. Feel free to LinkedIn me. I can talk about all things fundraising and AI as well.
And we have everything there.
Recommendations for grant writing, prospecting, and data analytics. Come talk to me. Come talk to me afterwards. LinkedIn me. Do you know of an AI governance template that you can be used by nonprofits to submit to their board? All right, so I put together that AI agent. Go to the Charity Scribe website, charityscribe.io. It says free AI policy. Click that link. It's for free for anybody. It's an AI agent that's designed on equitable AI implementation frameworks. Use it. It'll help you put together both a policy that you can draft for conversation with your staff and your board, and then make sure you get it legal reviewed to make sure that it's in line with your state law, right? There's been a number of state laws passed. And then it also helps you put together an implementation roadmap for what your needs are for your organization, not a template AI agent that's designed to produce something for you. What's behind Microsoft Copilot's background model? What are the risks our staff are using? Yes. So Gemini, I think we talked a little bit about what Gemini can do. Microsoft 365 is powered by ChatGPT. So they work together. So that's where the model is. It's actually over with OpenAI. So I would look at OpenAI's policies, recommendations for with full healthcare philanthropy for ways to utilize AI or not. Woo, we could have a whole session just on that. There is lots of potential in healthcare. We would have to talk, Larissa, we'll have to talk offline about which piece of healthcare, what kind of healthcare, what are you serving? Is it cancer? Is it research? Drug discovery is like a whole new world for AI use. So anything doing with data is amazing. Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much, Joanne. But yes, healthcare, that's a pretty big opportunity for AI. So please, come and chat with me, and we'll figure out what the best way is. Perfect.
And I just want to take the liberty of reading this one comment from Sarah, who says, "This is the best webinar on AI that I've ever been to. Thank you." That's all because of you,
Oh,
Rachel.
Sarah.
Thank you. This was really wonderful. We have a lot of other great comments and questions here, but I'm going to have to encourage you to follow her work, both through her website, but also her LinkedIn channel. And to make sure that you share this content when that note comes to you by email with your colleagues, so you can have a good, robust discussion about some of these issues that she's raised in your office. As she said at one point, I think you said 80% using, 2% with a policy. This is a big thing for me. I know it's huge for you. I'm so glad that you gave us some tools to have a discussion where we can start looking at this more seriously in our offices before it's completely out of control. Thank you so much, Rachel, for all of this today. Really do appreciate you and all your work on this. And I want to thank all of you who have been with us live for being here and for taking this issue seriously instead of just a practical matter, thinking about it thoughtfully. I want to encourage you to, of course, come to other sessions in the series. Hopefully we can have Rachel back to answer some of these dozens of questions that are coming in now, but also just to follow the series, not just for the push-ups, which I know Jack will be doing shortly, but also because it's a way to interact with your colleagues as you are all doing so brilliantly in the chat. We'll look forward to seeing you all next time. And until then, take care.